Hi everybody, my name is Abraham and I'm your big brother in recovery coming back to you with some more educational videos. I thank all you guys for watching the other videos, and if you're here for the first time, please subscribe and press the like button beneath. You've landed on a channel in which we talk about how to offer solutions to newcomers on recovery. So look, without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the last video, and now a word from our sponsors, because you know those more than 100 men and women who had already recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, they are our role models, or they are the pattern. They are speaking to us about what they did in order for us to achieve the same level of results, which is sustainable sobriety. So, without further ado, I'd like to draw your attention back to forward to the first edition, because on this channel, first of all, I don't like people to take my opinion for nothing, because opinions are like garbage cans. What we like to do is read from the literature, because that's where the program of recovery is located at. So, give you a minute to get your book, or rewind this after we do it. Listen to it first, go back and get your book. But I like to take off from forward to the first edition. So, without delay, let's take a look at the first paragraph again. We read this on the last time from now a word from our sponsors, but we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So right there, they identify themselves as the fellowship. In other words, they are more than 100 men and women, and they announce themselves as Alcoholics Anonymous. So the fellowship came before the book did, because they first had to figure out what they did in order for Bill to write the book to scale everything and get the message out. So, notice what it says next. They describe addiction as a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. That's very, very important, and we talked about this on last week. Notice what they recovered from. Would appear to be a hopeless state of mind and body. Now that's going to be common throughout what I'm going to be attempting to highlight in this book to you on today. And I'll tell you what our title of the video is for the day. It is simply a few simple rules. Now let's take a look at this. Notice they tell us what they recovered from, a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Then they tell us to show other people or alcoholics precisely how we have recovered from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body is the main purpose for this book. It goes on to tell us that if you look at the last sentence in that paragraph, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. So that means anybody that can use this that is suffering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Now, would you kindly turn for me to Roman numeral page XXVI. Let's do a pretty much a chain study here and look at this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. If you look at Roman numeral page XXVI, you will notice that this is in the doctor's opinion. And we already know Silkworth was an expert, worked at Towns Hospital, not only in alcoholism, but he treated drug addiction. And notice what he said on Roman numeral page XXVI. The physician who at our request gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge, he gave us more information, upon his views in another statement which follows. Watch what he's going to say. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe. What must we believe? That the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. In other words, healthy minds house healthy bodies. But notice the common thing that they're talking about. The 100 recovered, or the more than 100 recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Silk work comes along and confirms what we who suffer addiction must believe, and we must believe that the body of the addicted person is quite as abnormal as his mind. Now, let's continue to look and take a look at the problem. The problem is found on page 23 of your big book. Go to page 23 real quick. Page 23. And if you look at the first paragraph and you look, you'll see it says these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting a terrible cycle in motion. Well, we know what they're talking about. The mental obsession and the physical craving. If you don't take the first drink, you can't crave. But once you take the first one, you start, like I would, to crave, which starts the terrible cycle in motion. What is that terrible cycle? The seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Notice what it says next. Therefore, now this is there for a reason. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic or the addicted person centers in his or her mind rather than in their body. Watch this. Did it say in the narcotics? Did it say in the gambling? Did it say in the sex? Did it say in the alcohol, the crystal metal, the cocaine? No, it said centered in their mind rather than in their body. You remember, seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. There's something missing in here. We hear about the mind, we hear about the body, but let's continue to look and diagnose this thing, because, watch this. I think about getting high, I go cop, I get high. If I don't want to get high, don't think about it. But I need something to help me to do that, because guess what? Self can't help self. So if I transform my thinking, the outcome, I'll transform my life, because the action is neutral. Watch this. Go with me kindly to page 29. Let's look at something on page 29. First paragraph. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. Now, those people are telling us up to this point, we promise you that you can, and we're going to give you precisely the directions on how to do it. So they're just reaffirming this to us. Now, if you would go back to Roman numeral, page XXIX. This is where I wanted to get to. You remember? Seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Watch this. Roman numeral XXIX in the doctor's opinion. I could start at the bottom of the page, but I'm going to start in the middle of the top of the page. Look at the last sentence on the page. It talks about the person that constantly uses over and over again and gets remorseful and makes all these promises, but can't stop because they try to stop using their willpower, and their willpower doesn't work. It's like a person with diabetes or any other illness that wants to use their willpower not to suffer from the illness. It doesn't happen that way. Watch this. This is repeated over and over. And unless this person, meaning the person that's suffering from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, can experience an entire psychic or mind change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Now notice what it's going to say next. Next paragraph. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, those who do not understand could be people who never recovered. And they will tell you things like, we don't, because they don't understand that you can. Notice what it says. We can't transmit what we don't have. Once a psychic change or mind change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them suddenly, interesting word, finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. Watch this. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. This is the point I wanted to get to. In order for us to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, we need to follow a few simple rules. Look at the next paragraph. You remember when it says, A, we were alcoholics and couldn't manage our own lives? It also said, B, no human power can relieve us of our addiction. That means your sponsor, your counselor, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, your best friend. Watch this, the fellowship. Notice the next paragraph. The doctor couldn't even keep this brother clean. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal, Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Notice what he says. Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Now watch, the doctor is going to go outside of his medical experience and refer the person to spiritual experience. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. Watch this. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. You know, this is really powerful because when you think about it, you know, we talk about these few simple rules and we know that we do recover, but we're going to get a little exploratory in this because I want to show you what you must do in order to experience this psychic change. And I want you to understand it is simple. It is not complicated. But people that don't understand it don't know how to explain it to you in layman's terms. That's my plan for this video, is not only to prove to you that you can, but show you how. See, nobody cares what you know. They want to know how do you get the results from what you claim you know. In other words, to know and not do is a violation. But you not only need to know some, but understand how to apply in order to get the results. So let's continue to get exploratory and look at this thing. I want to take a side trail because as we just talked about this doctor, during this time, there was three main psychiatrists. One was the great Sigmund Freud. He had two students, Adler and the Dr. Carl Jung. Freud and Adler both agreed that the mind housed all the solutions, but Jung disagreed with them and felt that it needed to be something outside of the mind to cause the entire psychic change, which is spiritual. Now think about it. Dr. Silkworth gave Bill step 1. Dr. Carl Jung gave Bill step 2. But the Oxford group, Ebby and Thatcher and the rest of those guys, gave Bill step 3 through 12. Now let's take a look at that. That's very important what I just shared with you. Go to page 25. Remember, don't believe nothing I say, but let's look at it for ourselves. And when you're on page 25, I want you to look at the first paragraph. There is a solution. Notice italicized print. Although none of us like the self-searching or leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process required for its successful consumption. That sounds like people don't want to do step 4, but that's another video. Watch this. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, recovered, you remember? There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple, that word is again, simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We had found much of heaven and we had been rocketed. It takes power to rocket something into the fourth dimension of existence on which we had never even dreamed. The great fact, I want you to notice this, is just this and nothing less. That we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. Notice the asterisk. It's telling us to go to the appendix, and we will, but I want to show you something. Which have revolutionized our whole attitude or thinking towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator had entered into our hearts, in other words, our minds, and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. I know that's the case with me. God is currently doing for me what I could have never dreamed of doing for myself. Why? Because I was so disconnected to the power. In other words, here's an Abrahamism. I was separated from the Creator, but I was addicted to the created. Now notice something. If you are seriously alcoholic or addicted, as we were, not are. Why? We admitted we were, simply because we have recovered. You remember, more than 100 men and women had told you they recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. We believe there is no middle-of-the-road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. Now watch this. Here comes step one. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our tolerable situation as best we could. Sound like powerless and unmanageable. Here comes step two. Or the other, to accept spiritual help. This we did because we honestly, you remember the third tradition? The honest requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop using. Watch this, or drinking, or whatever your thing is, smoking. We did this because we honestly wanted to and were willing to make the effort. You remember? Willing to go to any lengths to get it? Now notice something. If you look at the next paragraph, it talks about a guy named Roland. And Roland basically tried to go and get Freud, but he wasn't taking any patients. He then tried to go to Adler. He was all booked up. So he went to Dr. Carl Jung, and he took him on as a patient to help him to understand what was going on with him. Thank God today that we don't sit back and psychoanalyze each other, because that's what Adler and Freud would have did. But Jung told the man that he needed to get something outside of human aid. In other words, he needed to seek a spiritual means as a solution. If you look at the middle of the paragraph, you'll notice the man had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician. Notice the parentheses, the psychiatrist, Dr. Carl Jung, who prescribed for him. And then he got to talking to Jung. I'm moving on just to look at the rest of the paragraphs. And then the guy kept, under the tutelage of Dr. Carl Jung for a whole year. Notice what Carl Jung didn't do. He didn't prescribe him some Xanax or some Valiums or oxycodone, but he sat and he talked with him. And you know what? The guy relapsed. He came back to him. Look at the bottom of the page. But this man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, because he thought he did, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude, thinking, way of thinking, simple. Remember, few simple rules? Watch this. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. if you continue to read and you go down to the second paragraph, it says, yes, replied the doctor, there is an exception. Exceptional cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. Now, if you go to your appendix, you'll notice that spiritual experiences are basically one and almost the same. Bill had an immediate experience, but most of us have awakenings that come as a result of an educational process. If you look at page 567 real quickly, let me get there myself. If you look at 567, it will tell you that we basically change our way of thinking through spirituality. It didn't say religion. And if you look at it, it tells you that the term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bringing about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Bill is a writer because I'm a writer. He repeats himself a lot of times. It'll confuse you if you don't understand. But basically, let me show you what he's talking about when he talks about change, constant change, right? He uses it in the first paragraph, is spiritual experience or spiritual awakening. Look at the other word, personality change sufficient to bringing about recovery. Look at the second paragraph, personality changes or religious experiences. Look what he says next, nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals, that's change. Look at the third paragraph, sudden revolutionary changes are described. Notice all these changes. Same paragraph, acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by vast change in feelings and outlook. Notice the next paragraph, such transformations. Then he goes on to talk about the educational variety in that paragraph. That's what I got as a spiritual awakening. Notice step 12. I got it through an educational variety. I worked the steps because they develop slowly over a period of time. Last but not least, in that paragraph, he talks about a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone, meaning he need a power greater than himself to do it. So read that appendix and you'll notice basically what the literature is talking about, where it says we have to undergo an entire psychic change or mind change. And if you recall, that was found on Roman numeral page XXIX. And it told us in order to experience that psychic or mind or attitude change, that God consciousness, we had to follow a few simple rules. Now I'm going to get to the simple rules. Go to page 98 so I can show you the simplicity of the rules. As Einstein said, out of complexity, get simplicity. Very simple, not complicated. Notice what it says in the second paragraph on page 98. Powerful word Bill starts off with. Burn the idea into the consciousness, not subconscious, of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. Now, I know the entertainers tell you we never get well, we never recover. Look what the man is saying. Regardless of what they saying, we get well, we get better, we do recover. Why? We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. I don't know what they read. Watch this. The only condition, here comes the simple rules, is that he trusts in God and clean house. And the old timers add help others. Now watch this. You remember I told you Dr. Silkworth gave Bill step 1. He knew he was powerless and unmanageable, but he kept relapsing. Carl Jung gave him step 2. They need a power greater than themselves, because you remember the doctor said, I can't help you. And I don't know how to get the psychic change, because he disagreed with Freud and Adler that the mind held all the solutions. Watch this. But the Oxford group gave Ebby step 3 through 12. Now watch this. Here are the few simple rules. Trust God, step 1, 2, and 3. Clean house, step 4 through 11. Help others, step 12. Why? When we help others, as we've said numerous times, we help ourselves. What are we helping others to do? Recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Now watch this. Most people, I'm going to give you a bonus right now. Most people have no idea what the message of recovery is. Yes, it's one word, hope, but what is the message of recovery? Go to page 58. Let me show you something, a hidden gem I'm just going to give you because you're on the channel right now. You never probably saw this before. Look at step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Guess what the goal of recovery is? Yes, hope, but it's to have a spiritual awakening. Notice what it says. Having had, what have I had? As a result of this educational process of working these steps, I've had a spiritual awakening. That spiritual awakening has delivered me or has transformed my thinking to where as though I have undergone a complete psychic change, that I'm no longer hopeless nor helpless. Why? I have hope in the fellowship, in the program, in my sponsor. They've given me help. Plus God has helped me, but he's done it. Watch this. As the result of these steps, notice what it says. We tried to carry this message. What message? That you can have a spiritual awakening once you work these steps. And guess what? Continue to practice these principles, the 12 principles behind the 12 steps. I didn't say the traditions. See, I'm not against traditions, but I'm not hiding behind traditions, because people that hide behind traditions don't like to work steps. See, I'm about quality of sobriety, not quantity. You know, you can have 400 years and still be restless, irritable, and discontent. And a person can have 6 months and be happy, joyous, and free, because guess what? They've had a spiritual awakening. Now I want to read something to you that I feel is very, very helpful. Notice on page, let's see, go back to page 98. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anything. The only condition is that he trusts in God, clean house, and help others. Watch this. I wrote something for you. What this means is, first we recover spiritually. Then we recover mentally, physically, watch this, and materially. First, we rely upon God, then we're given the strength to overcome our problem. What's our problem? Seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, right? Watch this. Step 1 is the problem. Step 2 is the solution. Step 3 is, now, do you want to make the decision to get the power, or you want to remain powerless? Read page 45, second paragraph. Lack of power, that was our problem. We had to find a power in which we could live. How can you be powerless with a higher power? Don't make sense. Watch this. Our real problem is that we have restricted our access to any power other than our own, but our selfish and self-centered, remember, self will run riot, centeredness outlook upon life. That's what got me in here. I tried to play God. Now, guess what? No longer my will be done, but God's will be done. In closing, I'd like to share one more thing with you, and that one thing is that page 132. Page 132. I'd like you to look at the last paragraph on the page. So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment or joy over a seemingly, that word is again, it appears, but it's not, tragic experience out of the what? Past. Why? My past has been removed. All I have is a future now because I've repaired, as a result of the steps, the wreckage of my past. But why shouldn't we laugh? Life is to be enjoyed, not to be endured. We have recovered and have been given the power to help others. My job as a sober person offering newcomers suggestions about recovery is to quickly as possible get you to step 12 so you can have a spiritual awakening and you can do two things: recover and be reunited with your family. You know, in closing, I want to tell you something. The goal is not to be clean and sober. The goal is to love yourself so much that you don't want to be used by anybody or anything other than your higher power. So look, in closing, I thank you for listening to the video. Please share this with your friends. Leave me some comments. And you know what? Remember today that God is doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. Thank you so much. Continue to follow those 3 simple rules. Trust God, clean house, and help others. Talk to you soon. Bye.